Welcome back, listeners. I am just tickled right now. You guys know I always love to bring you amazing interview guests, but today is a dear friend of mine, Britt Seva. You guys have likely heard me talk about her. You've probably seen her in my IG stories. If you watched, I don't know, my IG or any of my content since 2020, I was recently at one of Britt's events, her huge Thriver Society live event. So there's that. But today I want to share a little peek behind the scenes. I know you guys love to see like the way that businesses run from like a different perspective, not just like what the shiny stuff that we put on the outside in our social media feed and the things that we sell, but kind of what does it look like as we grow a business. So I kind of put Britt on the spot before we started recording. I was like, so I've had this like little intuitive hit for us today and I pulled a card so it's in total alignment. So here's what we're going to do.
I expected a podcast with you to start in no other way than with a card pull and channeling. So it's perfect. It was exactly what I expected and more.
That's so good. Glad. See, that's the thing. Like when you hang out with me for a certain amount of time, you have those kinds of expectations. I'm glad I could help. So we're going to talk about what it's like to revolutionize an industry. And I say this and Britt's eyes just lit up. She's like, ugh! I think you could all feel her stomach just drop. So I say this because not only is she a dear friend, but, I see from an outsider's perspective of what you've done to the hairstylist industry. And what we've all kind of commonly known is like, there's a lot of hairstylists out there. And if you're more like in the service-based business, you might be more familiar with some of the techniques that hairstylists use or their marketing, or, you might have predetermined like, what is a hairstylist like? What's their personality type? Are they like really super friendly? Do they get catty? Like, what's that person like? And what Britt is doing is she's basically shaking up the industry and saying, no more. Like, let's just be on the straight and narrow. You're here to help people. I want to show you how to do that. And I kind of just got a chill when I said that.
Me too. I kind of love it.
Oh my gosh. So what I want to do is kind of share, Britt, if you could share your sort of story of coming into this industry and what were some of your reasons for becoming a hairstylist when you first decided to do that. And let's kind of take them down the timeline, but let's just start at the beginning of the story.
Let's start at the beginning. So I always say that I was never the typical traditional hairstylist. I wasn't like, I didn't do everybody's hair for prom. I had a younger sister. I didn't do her hair. It wasn't like beauty is my passion. It was more like I had this tremendous drive to be self-made. That's the best way I can put it into a box. And I said, what career can I step into that will allow me to work my dream schedule, never hit a glass ceiling, make as much money as I want to, and work with amazing people. And it was like, what checked all the boxes for me was hairstylist. There was not a whole lot of other rhyme and reason to it. Mm-hmm. So because of that, I go back to my family and friends and I'm like, you guys, I'm dropping out of college. I'm leaving my incredible salary job and I'm going to become a hairstylist. And they were like, you're insane. This is crazy, because of the stigma of hairstylists, massage therapists, makeup artists, estheticians are broke. There's like this underlying stigma where somebody says, I'm going to be a service professional. It's like, oh, like that disappointment. You know what I mean? It's
yes.
like factor. The disappointment sets in. It's like a tangible noise that everybody understands. And so it was like, oh, poor Britt, there she goes. And for years, I know that's the box that I was put in. I can remember my mom was filling out a form. And as part of the form, you had to list what your income was. I think we were setting up a bank account or something like that. I don't even remember what the scenario was, but she pre-selected for me that I made less than $40,000 a year. And this was many years into my career. And I said, wow, what an assumption. I am in the beauty industry, so I must be broke. It was like, that was the put two and two together, A plus B equals C. And it was in those moments where I was like, man, this industry is so different than what people perceive it to be. And the potential here is tremendous. If somebody could get in and just give these stylists and salon owners a little bit of guidance, a little refinement, a little bit of a push, if somebody was willing to come in and teach and train and talk differently, we could truly revolutionize this thing. And I was like, what if I was the person to do it? Which, I mean, even saying it now, it seems so crazy. Like, who am I to do something like that? But it was like this calling, and I couldn't turn it off. It got noisier and noisier and noisier. And here we are today.
But who am I is what we all ask ourselves.
Yes. Yes.
So like, okay, so how old were you when mom was like, oh, you make a very small salary and I don't really fully believe in what you're doing?
I was probably 26 or 27. So I was at that time where it's like a lot of my peers had graduated college and were in these jobs that looked really shiny on paper, but like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
You know the ones I'm talking about. Really shiny. They had a business card. I'm sure they had a cute cubicle with like pictures on the wall and everything was like really great. But I know now what their lives look like, and I know what mine looks like. And you know, it's so funny, like the stigmas we put on, if you have the corner office, if you work the 9 to 5, if you take the business trips, you must be successful. And that's what happiness looks like. And I mean, I've learned through life experience, that is not the recipe for happy.
Yeah, I agree too. And I was a little bit younger when the same thing happened to me, because going to massage school and energy healing, the same looks, the same awe, that same thing happened to me until I was like, no, I'm gonna run a business. And they're like, oh, that's cute. And I remember inviting people to my open house and I was like, in your face, I did it. And the same exact thing. My friends were graduating college with these prestigious degrees from Ivy League colleges with a ton of debt and like literally a starter job, but like no idea what they're going to do with themselves. And here I am, like, I know what I'm doing. And they were jealous of me. And I'm like, wait, how did this just happen? They were jealous that I had freedom. I had flexibility. I was making my own career. And I felt this deeper calling, and they were kind of numb.
I love what you hit on right there, like the deeper calling versus the numbness. And so many people just feel like they almost fall into line. Like, well, this is what I'm supposed to do, or I think a lot of times we make choices where it's like people will perceive this as being the right thing. Socially, this is acceptable. Would it be crazy if I took a leap of faith? And instead of making these leaps or listening to that calling that you touched on earlier, we kind of fall right back into safety, right back into what we were supposed to do. And it does prevent you from living your biggest, best life. There's just no doubt.
It totally does. So what caused you or pushed you over the edge to take that leap of faith when everything in you was like, well, who am I to do this? Even though you had a calling to revolutionize and help teach and guide and refine.
It was a lot of things. I really, really thank the universe. And at the time I wasn't seeing it that way, but hindsight is 2020. And I did step away from the chair. I stopped doing hair in 2009 and I stepped into a salon director role. So I was leading a team. I was doing the marketing. I had a hand in social media, employee training, and I found a stride there. So I thought, oh my gosh, so clearly I'm supposed to be a salon owner. Like the stars have aligned. Obviously, this is, step 1, step 2, step 5 is going to be salon owner. So I tried to buy out my existing owner. I tried to buy out another owner. I tried to open 2 properties, and every single time it fell apart in the end. I would get, 70% of the way, 80% of the way, 90% of the way, and it would fall apart. And it was the most discouraging thing because I was like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree. Like maybe I'm not meant for more, just this is all happening to me. And at the time I was totally a victim. I can see now you know what, you're laughing because it's so true, right? Victim mentality.
And it's so not you now. Like you are such a go-getter and you're like, I will own my stuff. Like, thanks for calling me out. Like you are such a, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But at the time it was like, oh, this is it. I'm doomed. And I was like so down and out about it. And my husband was the one who was able to look from an outside perspective. And this is why I'm so thankful to definitely have him as my partner, but to have somebody like you as a friend, because we can do this for each other now, is look at situations from the outside and be like, well, I hear you saying this, but I can see that these other things are happening around you and it's worth taking notice of. And he knew that I had been consulting with salon owners and stylists about what I was doing within the salon. And he's like, if everybody's asking you to consult, maybe that's something you should double down on instead of opening a salon. And I was like, oh my gosh, what if we just did that instead? And I mean, 7 years later, here we are. It's turned into this huge, incredible business that I'm like head over heels in love with. It's like a love of my life. And it was sitting there the whole time and it was like, I couldn't see it.
that's how I felt when I finally niched down. I was working with people doing energy healing and teaching meditation, but I'm like, but what am I really doing? Like, what's my special thing? And I look kind of backwards in hindsight. I did it for myself. I didn't have a Chris, but I looked at going, oh, I seem to always be working with entrepreneurs and all their intake forms are saying the words stuck and overwhelmed and needing guidance, want to find clarity, want to find their path. I'm like, so I think there's something to this.
Maybe it's a thing. Right. But it takes like stepping back and being like, time out, hold on. When you're in the thick of it, it's really difficult to see the forest through the trees. You're like blinded by the current reality that you can't see the potential that's sitting just there right beyond your focus.
So at that point, how long had you been like in the industry altogether?
I think let's see, 2007, probably about 6 years. I had been actively in the industry, and I definitely grew fast through the ranks. There's no doubt about it. But that goes into my drive. Like people, I don't know, I'm sure you get asked this all the time too. Like, what makes somebody really successful? And I always go back to drive. I don't believe in luck or somebody was born with more money. All of that is BS. And you and I have both seen that that's not true time and time again. And I think it's the drive. And I think drive is something that you're able to tap into when you start working on something you really love. Like you and I have talked about this before. We both have businesses we love so much. Sometimes it's hard to turn it off because it just feels so in alignment and so right. And once I started working in the industry and starting to coach stylists, it was almost like a healthy addiction. Like I just loved doing it. I couldn't turn that drive off. And I just want to amplify it. And now I'm on like volume 100 and I want to keep cranking it.
Healthy addiction is such a great term for it because it is like, I get so lit up. Actually, I just recorded another podcast about, seeing if you have a small list and your only measure of success is like, do people buy from me? And if that's your measure, you're always going to feel sort of left out versus feeling like, did I inspire someone today? Did I help give somebody something helpful, a tip, or, give them some sort of way to have a better life? And if that's your measure and people are emailing you, DMing you, responding to your post saying, wow, that really shifted something in me. I really needed that today. Then you're getting paid every day, all day long.
I love that. And I always I think to myself, I don't know if you've thought about this too, but for the listeners, Emily and I talk quite a bit privately. We have this running chat that's going on all the time. And sometimes I think to myself, man, if people could listen to our chats, I think it would be really insightful to hear the way we talk about things like that all the time. How you and I have both said over and over and over, we don't do any of this for the money. We do it for the ripple effect where you can affect one person and it reaches 10. We do it for that DM that you just talked about where it's like, my gosh, you've changed my life, or you've inspired me, or you've pushed me to make that leap. That is the rush. That is the payment. And it's the best feeling. And I think it's people like you and I who are driven by that who find tremendous success.
Yeah. And it is super addictive. And so one thing I wrote down as you were talking, it's like, so I kind of, as I interview guests, I'm listening, I'm taking notes of what they say. This is for anybody who wants to podcast, I guess. I don't know who I'm telling this to. I don't even know why I'm sharing
The people want to hear it. It's good. It's good.
This is the behind the scenes for everybody, everyone. We're all exposed here. So one of the things, like I listen, I'm an active listener. So I like to write as I'm listening, but then at some point, sometimes when people are talking, I'll have like a intuitive hit and I'll write that down. And sometimes it's relevant and sometimes it just goes. But one of the things that I wrote down for you was that there was no path to where you are today. There was nobody before you. Like Paul Mitchell didn't do this. Or
chills hearing you say that. I totally agree, because I can remember looking back and being like, man, I wish somebody had done this. Like, I wish there was a path I could follow. And now with the hindsight being 2020, like I realize the path to success is pioneered. There is no recipe card that you follow. It's being brave enough to like forge your own journey. Good, better, best, and different. Like just go out there bravely and create your destiny. There is no other way. You can follow somebody else's model and you might find some success along the way, but finding your own true happiness is a journey you have to pave on your own.
I just want to let that sit for you guys. Like that is so good. Not everybody has this calling. Not everybody, like there are definitely people who are here as an entrepreneur. You want to make a difference, you want to help people for sure. I feel like there are fewer of us who are meant to be leaders. And what's really interesting is as many personality tests as I've done and like look at astrological charts and I don't know, like breakdown of what my name means and when I was born, like I will look at everything that is in me leads to leadership. And I just believe, I mean, I chose this lifetime, I chose this body, I chose this time and whatever to be a leader. And I share with you one of my visions of, you know, my light turning on lights in other people, which is like a cascading, like a sea, a ripple effect of more lights turning on. And it's an amazing vision to have. And it's also a huge responsibility. And I also realize not everybody sees their life like that. It's kind of strange. And I see you as that a light worker too. You're here to shine your light so that other people can do that. You're here to pave that path so there can be dozens of people behind you to kind of go, oh, there's a new way to go. It's not easy. People might look up to you or me or other people who are leaders in different industries and be like, well, it's so much easier for them now because, you know, look at, they have all these followers and downloads and like these other metrics that they might measure themselves against. So what would you say to somebody who looks up to you in awe of how much you've accomplished and is like, but that's for Britt. I don't know. What about for me?
Such a good question. I mean, I had all of those thoughts and feelings too. Like when I stepped into this industry, I was not the first coach to try and teach business to hairstylists. I was the first one to do it in the way I chose for it to be done. And it was one of those things where I didn't care if it was right or wrong. It just had to happen. I felt like the industry needs this. So right or wrong, I'm doing it. It's just something that I feel needs to happen. And I can't even describe it, but I wasn't afraid to fail. Like I knew if I stepped in and fell flat on my face, it's okay. I could just do something else. And I think that people forget that. Like we are going to fail. As humans, we're going to fail all the time. And it doesn't mean it's the end. It just means it's a fork in the road. Yeah. And so had I jumped into this and it had completely failed, it's okay. I would have done something else. And I think a lot of people look at like, well, how am I supposed to do what they've done? Well, first of all, you're not. You're supposed to do what you're supposed to do. Yeah. But try again. And the path to success is continuing to try over and over and over until you get a hit. And then continuing to chase that. And I have found like through the years, definitely more senior educators aren't quite such a huge fan of mine because I am revolutionizing, because I'm myth debunking and talking about things that are different. And I had to let go of the need for acceptance, which for me is part of my DNA. It's like, I want to be loved. I want to be accepted. I don't want to be judged so deeply. And part of the healing process and something you've helped me with tremendously is releasing that need for everybody to love every single thing I do. That was a part of the process and is still something I'm working on for sure.
Yeah, I think we all want, I mean, it is in our DNA because as, you know, cave people, we needed to survive. We need to be part of the pack to survive. We couldn't be off on our own. So I think it is inside of our reptilian brain. So we are wired for that part of us to be accepted. And that same thing about being judged, but most of us let judgment stop us from showing up how we really want to show up. And sometimes I'll pose the question to people, my membership or wherever, is like, if you weren't afraid of being judged, how would you show up today?
And it changes everything. Oh my God. Yeah. It's all the fear. Like, then what is the worst that could happen? Then you're your own worst enemy. And now you got to get over your own crap to push forward. You can't blame anybody else now because their judgments don't matter. And so now it's just you and you're left with your own, you know, drive and ish and working through all of those pieces.
So let's talk about this, like this failure thing, because for some people, they put a tremendous amount of expectations to succeed. So there's this pressure on them like, okay, you know, so-and-so created a 7-figure business in 3 years. Like I have to hurry up already and do it. Have you ever in your life felt this pressure to succeed or like anything that's like it has to be done at a certain level, certain pace, like anything like that for you?
I think yes and no. I definitely had, I wanted to be self-made success. I remember at the very first mastermind retreat, you and I were part of the same mastermind. At the very first retreat, we were encouraged to write down a word that would define for us how we knew we had made it, whatever that means. And we could talk about that, but like I've made it. And my immediately was big self-made success. And the tough thing was I couldn't categorize what success meant necessarily. It wasn't a certain dollar amount. It wasn't a certain lifestyle. It was like this feeling I was going to get that I had made it and I had done it myself. And so I continue to try and categorize for myself, like, what does big self-made success mean? Does that mean I have a yacht? Does that mean I'm a homeowner? Does that mean I pay for my kids' college? I don't even know. Does it mean that I just have a freedom business? I'm still on this journey to try and figure that out. But I can remember sitting with you in a car the very first time we met, and you and I both had like baby businesses. And this was what, like 4 years ago or whatever?
Yeah.
If somebody had told us sitting in that car 4 years ago that you and I would have the businesses we have today, I don't think I would have believed them. Like, we were just like two girls in a car with a dream, like wanting to change lives. And like anything amazing that happened based on that was just going to be this gift. But I can remember you and I sitting there, and it wasn't like, I have to make $1 million by the time I'm X years old, or I want this business to generate this amount of revenue. It was like, we wanted to change lives, and we had really big dreams and really good hearts. And I think there's a lot to that, where if you're a good person with good values and you want good for the world, like the success truly does come. And I know I'm not the first person to say that. People talk about it all the time, but then you live it and breathe it and see it to be true.
Yeah. And you're right. Success does come. And I think it does happen to, and I asked you, like, when you started, how long were you? And you said you were in the industry for 6 years before things started to shift into consulting. And I asked that because for me, it was a very long 10-year period where I was doing the brick and mortar thing. And I was like, something has got to change. I don't know what it is. And I couldn't quite put my finger on it. But as soon as I did, my business catapulted, and it was like, oh, okay. But people can see like, oh, well, it's only been a small window of time. And it's like, it really hasn't. I've been failing really pretty miserably for the last 15 years. Like, I am not ashamed to admit that at all, because if I can do it, that means anybody can do it. If I can learn how to put my brick and mortar healing business online and into Kajabi, so can you. I mean, honestly, anything is possible.
I totally agree. Like, you and I are newly relevant. Like, the fact that people like hear our voices is like brand new, and we're still getting used to it. But I joined the industry in 2007. That means I'm 13 years into this game. Like, my journey started over a decade ago. Any success is new and shiny, and we're still trying to figure it out. It's so true, that whole like overnight success takes a lifetime. It's so completely true.
Okay, so I want to back up, because there's something that's bringing my attention, which is the feeling of making it. And you were saying like that journaling exercise, which I wish I should go find my journal and see what I wrote, because I don't even know what that happened. All I do know is at that event, I was doing chicken stuff and this quote wellness business. I didn't even have a name for like what I do. It was just like an idea, a concept. So
I'll never forget, you came in and you were like, so I'm doing this wicked cool chicken school. And I was like, that's amazing. And then I sit down with you and you're talking about how I chose this lifetime and you're giving me this healing session. And I was like, who is this chicken lady and what is happening? It was unbelievable. And so to see how your journey's evolved has been so incredible. Like, to get to watch it as your friend, it's been amazing. The evolution has been wonderful. You were just so good about like self-exploration and being open and getting to watch how you like really are finding your true north. It's just been such a joy to watch from the outside. It's so cool.
Oh, thank you. So my question is, that feeling of making it, can you take us to feel what that feels like? Like, what does making it feel like for you? Like, when you close your eyes and you feel something in your body, or you tune into like a thought, an image, like anything at all, like what comes to mind? What does making it feel like for you?
I'm getting closer to understanding. I've done a lot of like deep work and self-reflection. I'm an alternative meditator, so I don't do like a traditional meditation, but like a lot of what I would call meditation on it. And I'm trying to have moments where I really realize like, man, girl, you've made it. And I'm saying it out loud and I'm saying it to the universe. And there's like peak moments, and I have them in my mind. There was a moment last year where I got to speak on a really big stage. And I can remember it so silly, like in the morning, standing in a bathrobe, looking out the window of my hotel room and being like, man, this is the moment where you look around and you have everything you dreamed of as a little girl. Like, who could ask for anything more? That was a moment for me when I was reflecting on the life I've built and what I have, like who could ask for anything more? I'm so fortunate. And the other day, dropping off my daughter somewhere, I got in my car and I was driving to work from home, and my husband was here, and I was going to get to be with the puppies and thinking about the weekend we were going to have. And again, it was like, man, I've really made it. Like, who could ask for anything more? I'm just trying to have those moments.
Yeah.
Recently, well, not recently, 6 months ago today, my husband had an accident. He's been out of work for 6 months, and our life has gone on. And that to me is a huge self-made success moment of like, who could ask for anything more? We are down to one income. We can give him the best physical therapy money can buy. We can just allow him to focus on his healing and not worrying about anything else. And who could ask for anything more? I'm just trying to be very hyper present to being really thankful and grateful for what I've built.
Yeah.
And through that gratitude, I'm just finding like the abundance continues to come.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And I do have people ask all the time, like, well, how do you have big goals that things are just like so far from what their current reality is? And like how do you do that? Like, you have this big goal, but you don't have that now. And kind of exactly what you said, which is, I feel like it's all rooted in gratitude, because if you're not grateful for what you have, the universe, God is almost like, oh, well, you can't handle it. I wouldn't want to overwhelm you and like overfill your plate. Like, let's just keep it nice and small and simple. And you just try to figure out with what you got. But what advice would you give to people, or how do you kind of address that? Because obviously, from being a hairstylist behind the chair to running a multi-million-dollar business, like, you've had goals and then higher goals and then higher goals after that. So can you take people in kind of like what that feels like for you?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm a little bit of an alternative like goal setter, and I'm doing the bunny ears. Goal setting is really difficult for me, to what you said. Like, if somebody asks you, like, Emily, I even asked you this actually this week, Emily, where is your business going to be in 5 years? Who the heck knows? Like, how are you supposed to put a box around that? And so that's always been my challenge with goal setting of like, I don't even know where I'm going to be living in, like, everything could change.
Mm-hmm.
And so I used to do that. I used to even say I wanted to be done having kids by a certain age. I wanted to have a certain amount of money. I wanted to be a homeowner. And I used to try and put all these things into boxes. It was like these very clear-cut goals. And I've stopped. And what I have found is the more present I become to what is happening now, and listening to current messages and listening to how I'm feeling, and being in tune to what my actions that I'm taking right now, what kind of effect those things are having on my life, that is driving me on a way clearer journey. I'm making better life decisions and business decisions, and I'm finding I'm being rewarded for it. And instead of choosing a destination and then trying to drive the path to get there, I'm just being present to what is happening in my current destination, kind of listening to the signs all around me and making more intuitive choices based on that. And it's serving me really well. Like, even going back to those days when I thought I was supposed to be a salon owner, and Chris was like, no, you dummy, everybody's asking you for coaching, do this. It's like I was so focused on the future, I couldn't see the present. And I'm trying to just get really hyper focused on the present and allowing that to lead my future, if that makes any sense at all.
It makes complete sense, because being present, you're also sharing exactly like a day in the life of Britt Seva, which is, you're in the present, you're dropping your daughter off to school. You're so unbelievably, overwhelmingly grateful for this lifestyle. Your husband has a crazy, tragic accident suddenly that would, for most people's family, shake up everything and probably like start a dark spiral in their family for God knows however many years. You're like, wow, what a gift, what a blessing, because we can do all these things because of this lifestyle we've created. So what you're saying is being in this present moment and choosing gratitude. I think what some people may have heard, you and I both have talked about this, like the have, do, be model versus be, do, have. And so people who are not familiar, it's kind of like saying, well, one day when I have the money, then I will create a more kind of conducive lifestyle to that, and then I'll be happy. When I have 1 million followers, then I can, stop doing the things that I'm doing right now, and then I'll have, more joy, more flexibility. And the other way around is actually more true, and it's actually what stokes those manifestations to really happen, which is being present, being grateful for who you are right now in this moment, and for all the things that are also coming. Do you kind of ask yourself, like, what would my higher self do? What would, future gazillionaire Britt Seva do? What would, I don't know, if you have a mentor or somebody who you look up to who's like, oh, wow, they're like where I want to go. What would they do? What decision would they make? Do you ever do that when you're making decisions or like anything like that?
I do. And it's so funny when you say like, look up to a mentor. There isn't like a specific person. It's almost like a future version of me, like
Yeah.
thinking about, isn't that amazing?
Yes.
I'm so glad that you agree with that. Of course you do. This is why I love you. But it's like I am my best guide. So getting attuned to what the future Britt would want. And as soon as I'm talking to her and I'm consulting with her about who I need to be. And I love that you brought up be, do, have, because I've tried to coach to that too. And everyone is so good at the have, like, oh, what do I need to have? That part comes easy.
Yeah.
The be is so incredibly difficult. And the finding appreciation for who we already are and what we already have is so difficult. I was reflecting recently, when I started this coaching business, we were flat broke, really, really in debt. We were living in a 700 square foot duplex. My husband and I were sleeping on the couch so our kids could have the 2 bedrooms. And I remember in that moment being like, this is horrible. We need to get out. And I look back on our time in that house and I don't feel that way anymore. And it's made me stop being frustrated with where I'm ever at currently, and being mega in appreciation for the be right now, like being happy, being grateful, appreciating my present, even if it doesn't check all the boxes in the moment, like honoring the be who I am right this second, and allowing that to evolve into where I want to be, and like doing that self-healing work. Oh my gosh, is so much more beneficial than wishing, dreaming, saying when I have more money, when I have more talent. Just, you're already put on this planet with tremendous gifts. Continue to do the work to tap into those. And it's funny, the rest really just does come.
It really does. Well, the best future self is also what I call your higher self. So when we tap in, when you tap in meditation, or when you like dream up like your one day scenario, like one day I'm going to have this blah, 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 or you connect with that part of yourself that's already reached that pinnacle of success in your business and your life, and you look back at like what was happening around you, what does it look like? I actually have a meditation called Crystal Clear Success that literally guides you through a day in the life of your higher self. Like, how does she wake up in the morning? What does she eat? What kind of practices? And so be, that word be, meaning what would she do? Like, what's the most successful Brit personality type? What kind of attributes does she have? Does she feel like the world owes her something? Or does she feel really like just grateful for everything that's happening and really fully in the present moment? Okay, so if that's what future Brit acts like, then I need to do that right now. That's your direct cue. It's like if you had a daily checklist on like how to become a gazillionaire, it's literally coming from you to you. It's like you already know the answers. We're just not putting it into practice. So if it comes to connecting with the right people, keeping high vibrational people who believe in you around you in your tight circle, or you bringing people who like poo-poo your dreams and like kind of don't get you. Are you eating foods that really support you? Are you drinking enough water? Are you doing enough daily activities? Are you having enough fun? Are you taking good self-care? Like, does the higher self do that stuff? If yes, please do that.
Totally. And I mean, you're bringing it up, so I'm going to talk about it. I don't even know if you were heading this direction, but you over the last year have coached me a lot. I can be a workaholic. It's very easy for me to overindulge my healthy addiction of loving my business and not taking care of myself. It's very easy for me to slip back into that. And just in the past few months, I've been trying to be who I really need to be to get to that next level. And being that means taking half a day off work to go to the spa. It means I spend an hour in the morning sipping coffee with my husband when I could be working. I'm making different choices that the higher Brit would make, and it is serving me so well in a way I didn't even think was possible. I thought if I didn't grind it out 12 hours a day, I was still caught up in that belief. And it's funny because when I started being the way you've encouraged me to be for quite some time, it's serving me and my family and my business so well.
I think it's just a habit of breaking a habit of like, grinding. And like, you know, we do have to work. Like, yes, there's alignment, and yes, there's joy, and yes, it's like so positive, but like, it's a lot of hours to be able to get this motor humming. And it's like, it takes more than just one person. It takes hiring the wrong people, it takes falling down, and all of that work and fixing mistakes. Like, that's what she's talking about, is putting in those kinds of hours. She's not coaching people for 12 hours every day. She's doing the behind the scenes that nobody sees, like hair in a top knot. Like, no one is going to see this mess. I'm just tired and it needs to get done. That's all that matters. But giving yourself that space, and you've done an amazing job, especially this year, and even leading up, is like, because you had your huge event, you had your first ginormous live event, 450 people, what, a dozen speakers. I mean, your team was like, just killed it, knocked it out of the park. And for all that to happen, you could have been like a total wreck leading up to it. And I don't know if I would love to hear like some of your practices as things were getting closer, or you were getting more stressed, and like, or maybe you weren't getting, maybe you're just like, hey, this is easy, no probs. But like, what does that feel like for you as far as like self-care? Like, you're seeing your higher self, your vision is coming to life. Like, what's going on the inside for you?
So interesting, because we're going to go back to hindsight, but leading up to that event, I had a lot of fears and feels about it. I truly didn't think anybody would want to come to a large scale event that I was putting together. I felt like, what if we can't pull this off? I had a lot of fears and feels about it. I was worried I was going to let my community down. I was worried I was going to let my speakers down. All the fears, all the head talk was there.
So wait, you're saying that at your level, you still have fears?
Can you believe it? Running in there all the time, like a constant chatter. Yes.
Myth busted.
Myth busted. So I somehow pushed forward, and I really thought to myself, like, if we blow it, we just won't do this again. But fingers crossed. And I had to trust my team going into it. It was one of those things I couldn't do myself. And I can remember, I'm having chills just saying this, at the end of day 2, the event venue we had a second story. So you could stand on the balcony and really look down over the stage and look down over everything. So I had stepped off the stage, the confetti cannons had gone off, the event was done. And I had this moment where I got to go upstairs and just stand on that balcony and look down at the event space and just feel so much appreciation for, like, holy moly, like, my message and my vision filled this room with 450 souls plus a dozen speakers who wanted to be here to share their brilliance. I mean, who could ask for anything more? It was such an incredible moment. And there was a very full circle moment on that stage. I didn't realize how important this event was going to be for me. Last year, I had a reading with you. It's been over a year. I can't believe it. I had a reading with you. And I was so excited because I went into the reading wanting something very specific. I basically wanted you to be a fortune teller, but I had an idea in my mind. Right? Can you be my fortune teller? And also, can you tell me exactly what I want you to say? Because in my mind, I came in and I'm like, so this is the message I want from you, Emily. So if you could deliver this, that would be great. You didn't. You did not deliver what I had asked you to deliver. You delivered something very different. And I had thought I was going to walk into this call and you were going to tell me exactly what I should do with my business. I was going to walk away with all this clarity. And what you ended up delivering was this childlike version of me. She was like 8, 9, 10 years old. And it was like staring at an old version of myself. And she was jumping up and down like big, and like, she wasn't necessarily saying words, but I could feel the emotion. It was like, please, please, please. And she wanted love. That was what came through over and over and over. It was this little Britt, and that's what she wanted. And I got off the call and I was like, honestly, I don't get it. I was like, I love Emily, but I don't get it. Mm-hmm. And so I carried that for like a year. Like, well, that was great to see me again, but I don't get it. So on that stage at Thriver Society Live, it was my last speaker, and her name's Lori Harder. And she sat there, and somebody was asking her in the Q&A, what do you do to prepare for a speaking engagement like this? And she turned to me for whatever reason, and she was like, you know what I do? I talk to a childlike version of myself, and she gives me the strength I need to do this and to go forward. And she looks me dead in the eye and she goes, Britt, imagine if a childlike version of yourself came to you and told you you were exactly where you needed to be, exactly when you needed to be there, delivering all the right messages. It was I still have chills thinking of it now, the most in alignment I've ever felt. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is that childlike version who showed up when I was there with Emily, coming back around to be like, this is it. You're doing it. Feel it. Appreciate it. Know that you are fully aligned and the universe has your back. that event gave me more gift, more clarity, more guidance, more drive than I ever could have dreamed of. And it's so amazing to have those full circle moments like that, where had I not felt the fear of putting on this live event that I was so certain was going to be a disaster and nobody was going to come to, and to have that childlike version of me and be like, no girl, I always knew you could do this. Congratulations for stepping into that next level. It was just everything.
Yeah. And I mean, I will also share with the listeners that you were certain that like, yeah, sure, it was an idea to have a live event, but it was destined to be a disaster. And Britt sold out the VIP in how many hours was it?
17 minutes.
Okay, 17 minutes.
Yeah.
And the whole event, 450 tickets in how long?
24 hours.
24 hours. VIP 17 minutes. 450 other tickets in less than 24 hours. So at that point, your guidance was just like in your face. See, I told you so.
Slap me hard, so hard. Like, come on, you dummy. People, this is it. And what I think was the best about the event was bringing a community together. I still don't look at it being like, and Britt Seva killed it. It was to what you said. Like, my mission is to connect people and to inspire a tribe and to be that drop in the ocean that creates the ripple. It's like the ripple came together, and seeing that happen in that room, it was just beautiful.
And I think I want to echo this back too. So your industry, hairstyles industry, has yet to have an event that was business focused, and it's mostly like technique. I'll teach you a skill. It's a sea of people and you're watching a stage and you're learning a little thing, and then maybe like a sprinkle of a little business technique in there if you're really lucky. And this was the first event of its kind. And I remember the first day when Rachel, who was the MC, she came off stage. She's like, you guys, I don't know what's happening out there. And our friend Colin Boyd, he's like a master of speaking. And he's like, let me just do a couple little tweaks. Because what happened, what we realized was like, oh my gosh, these people have never been to a business event. They don't understand what this space is that we're creating. They're used to something else, and this isn't it. So it's unsafe. It's uncomfortable. You've got to get back in there and help them to feel back at home, feel safe. But this is also an echo to what you did with your podcast. So when you created the Thriving Styles podcast, I remember your emails to like, so here's what a podcast is. This is how you listen to it. Why would you listen to it? Oh, let me tell you why you listen to it. How do you listen to it? Well, if you're at the gym or in the car or on a walk, you can just have me in your ears. And I mean, it's like an industry that's not used to podcasting. You brought them podcasting, and now you're probably the number one podcast in the industry. I mean, like, there's nobody else. Like, let's be honest. What else are people talking about in hairstyles? Just you. But that's hard. Like, you paved a path, and like for you to be like, I mean, I remember leading up to it, you're like, you had wanted to do a podcast for quite a while. What finally was like the straw that was just like, I've just got to do it, even though like nobody knows what the heck a podcast is and maybe they won't listen to it?
That's such a good question, because you're right. I had wanted to do a podcast for maybe 2 years, like a really long time. I was like, I should do a podcast. I should do a podcast. But it was stepping into uncharted territory. My audience was not there. To what you said, I had to create a PDF that was like, go to the App Store, download. It was like, I mean, I had to teach, like, hold their hands like babies and show them how it was done, because my industry was just not listening to podcasts yet. A lot of other people in the digital space, it was like going to church, in the morning. It's like, I listen to my podcast, I'm there, but they weren't there. And so I thought, man, I'm going to go into uncharted territory. But what I have found is through business, being brave enough to do the things that nobody has done before is what continues to serve me well. Like being the weirdo, being the freak. I have to be the one to do things so big that they may be a total failure. Mm-hmm. And if they are, that's okay, because I'll just do something else so big. But as soon as I start copycatting somebody else, I'm behind. They've already plotted their journey out a year ahead of me. And so jumping into the podcast, I thought maybe nobody will listen to this. But you were asking me before we hopped on this call how I'm loving my podcast. It brings me more joy than anything else. And I think so long as we continue to like serve those pieces that are calling to us and serves joy to us, you can't go wrong, but it's like another piece of the puzzle. Do the pieces that you feel like really, really serve you. And so long as you stay true to that, your audience will respond.
Yeah, for sure. Have you ever had an experience where you were like, I'm going to go in all in on this thing and I don't care if I'm going to fail, and you did not get the results that you were hoping to get?
YouTube has been an epic fail for me. I still can't
Okay.
figure that thing the heck out. But I look at, okay, so then I look at the platform. YouTube is like polished videos and like very direct. I am cheesy. I'm a rambler. I mess up my words all the time. I butcher quotes. And when I think about that, maybe YouTube just isn't for me. Like polished video doesn't suit my personality. So I wanted YouTube to work so bad. I wanted polished video to work so bad. But then when I look at the person I am, it's like a square peg round hole. Like I need to be on the places where I feel like myself. And that's been a big thing too. The more I try and be somebody else or whoever I think I'm supposed to be, the harder it is. The more I'm just like, I'm weird and I say cheesy things and I dress in a weird way and just like double down on that, the more success I find, like embracing who I am and showing up the best I can as myself.
That's good advice. What are your favorite platforms? Where can people find you?
People can find me at Thriving Stylist Podcast, anywhere the podcasts are sold. I love Instagram, and I'm at Britt Seva on Instagram, and then I'm on Facebook. I'm Britt Seva Social Media Marketing, so you can find me there as well. I'm a live video junkie. I'm a podcast junkie. Anywhere I can showcase my personality, I'm there.
Yeah, I love that too. I'm with you. So you guys, I am positive that you've left with some amazing gems, some beautiful quotes, and certainly a smile on your face. I would love it so much if you would take a screenshot, tag Britt and myself in your Instagram stories. Let us know you've been listening. Let us know if you had a big takeaway, if something occurred to you that you've been sitting on for a while that you want to take action on. I would love to hear some big moments for you that you go, oh, I listened to your podcast, reminded me of this thing and I did it and I feel so good. But thank you so much for being here and just sharing so vulnerably everything from behind the scenes of sort of just making of this business. A lot of people don't know this side of you. So thank you so much for sharing all this stuff, Britt.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to keep it real. I love you, and I'm just so thankful to be in this space with you. Thank you.
You're welcome. I love you. You guys make sure you find us at Britt Seva and at the Thriving Stylist podcast and at Emily Aarons. I'll see you on the next one. Everything is going to be in the show notes for you, so you don't have to look it up if you're driving. It'll all be there for you. See you on the next episode. Lots of love.